Good afternoon. Thank you for waiting. I'm Dan Thomas. I'm the Communications Director and Spokesperson for the President of the General Assembly. Thank you for attending this media stakeout following today's informal dialogue of the General Assembly. Please allow me to introduce Helen Clark, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, which has nominated her as a candidate for the position of the next Secretary General of the United Nations.
Thank you to the spokesperson of the President of the General Assembly. Well, as you know, I've just had a very full 2 hours with the General Assembly members. I've circulated a vision statement, I've given a formal statement today, and I've answered a very, very wide range of questions. I want to put on the record that I value the President of the General Assembly opening up the process of the selection so that candidates can say what they're about and engage with the member states. I think that this is part of ensuring that the best person for the job is selected, and obviously I come forward because the Government of New Zealand believes I am the best person for the job, and I come forward with the full support of the Government and Parliament of New Zealand. So with those comments and thanks to the PGA, I will answer 3 or 4 questions before I run for a train.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Pamela Falk from CBS News for the Paul Henry Show of New Zealand. Paul would like to know, how do you change the organization and upset it and shake it up without putting people offside? I think that's a New Zealand term. And the second part of the question is, what do you think about the fact that the UK bookmaker has you as an odds-on favorite?
Well, I've never been a betting person, you know. The horse racing is very popular in my country, but I've not been very successful at ever following it. But I think the issue with the UN is not to come forward and say everything's wrong, because not everything's wrong. But there are some things that could be better, and I've stressed a lot today the issue of collaboration across the different silos and sectors in the system. I think we could offer better value for money to the member states. I think some of the processes are a bit clunky, from what I hear from friends across the road here. So my view would be to take a good look at it when in a position to do so, and start a process of ensuring that you know, the systems are good for good people. That's my objective.
Mrs. Clark, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, South African Broadcasting. You talk about the value of this open process. What of its impact? And I wonder, as a candidate for Secretary General, what are your thoughts on perhaps a straw poll in the General Assembly after this process, so as to really have an impact on the final decision that will be made by the Security Council? Would you be open to that?
Well, this is a member state process, so member states are going to have to work out what's appropriate. The convention has been that the Security Council comes forward with a name. Obviously, there's a lot of voting going on within the Security Council. Then the General Assembly gets to vote. But it's for member states to address. I've come forward on the basis of the process as we know it. I welcome it being opened up in the way that it has, because I think transparency is important. But you know, let the member states decide what's the best way to go.
Ali Barada from France 24 and from An-Nahar newspaper in Lebanon. This organization was founded with the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and hasn't been able to find a solution. Do you think, as a Secretary General, you will be able to solve this long-standing conflict, and how?
Well, I said in my comments today that it's a matter of great sadness for me that this issue has been unresolved throughout my lifetime, and I do regard it as a critical issue for the UN to engage with. If there's anything I can do, I will, because as long as it's unresolved, it's a source of tension and a source of great concern. So one can only make best efforts, offer good offices, engage in dialogue with all parties to try and move it forward.
Yes, Joseph Klein of Canada Free Press. Would you, as Secretary General, support instituting a formalized Freedom of Information disclosure mechanism for Secretariat-generated documents, for example, documents related to budgets and operations? And would you support the establishment of a permanent outside independent investigatory commission rather than the ad hoc appointment of specific commissions, in response to crises. Thank you.
Well, I emphasised in my comments that in my time at UNDP, we have embraced the principle of transparency, which has led to UNDP being named for 2 years in a row as the most transparent aid organisation in the world. And I led that based on my experience as a leader in New Zealand, working with an Official Information Act, which had been in place since 1982. So I have a very strong disposition to transparency. I would obviously need to look at what the levers are to advance that principle in the Secretariat, as they may be different from those in a fund and program of the UN. But in principle, I'm very interested in greater transparency. Can we take one more?
One more question here.
Thank you, Abdul Hamid Sayam from Al-Quds Al-Arabi. My question, if you become a Secretary General, would you be bold enough to criticize those states who are in violation and flagrant violation of Security Council resolution and international law?
Well, there is an Article 99 which enables the Secretary General to draw the attention of the Security Council to issues where she thinks is a serious breach to peace and security. I think there's also an expectation among the world's citizens that Secretary General will speak truth to power. That has to be based on good judgment and a lot of evidence. But people do look to the Secretary General to give a voice to the voiceless.
Thank you very much. Best of luck.
I can tell you, Mr. Lee, it is due in mid-April, so it's very close. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be back again at 5 o'clock for the next candidate, the final candidate today, and then a stakeout by the President of the General Assembly, Mons Lukatov, after that to wrap it up. Thank you.